Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SavvyCast. This is Jamie, and I'm thrilled that you're here today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. My guest today is a professional matchmaker. Not only is she a professional matchmaker, she is a celebrity matchmaker. Today, I will be talking with the very fascinating and lovely Alessandra Conti. She is the co-founder of Matchmakers in the City, which is an old school personal matchmaking firm headquartered in Beverly Hills. Conti is the celebrity matchmaker for shows like Bravo's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, NBC's Access Hollywood, and was a matchmaker behind 2 seasons of MTV's Are You the One? Her dating, relationship, and business advice has been featured on Forbes, Fox News, the New York Times, the LA Times, and more. For 12 years, Alessandra has worked with clients ranging from celebrities to young professionals, and she leads a team of 7 matchmakers responsible for hundreds of marriages. I cannot be more excited to welcome to the SavvyCast, Alessandra Conti. Alessandra, thank you so much for being on the SavvyCast.
It is so great to be here, Jamie. Thank you for having me.
Well, I was just telling you that my daughters all think that you are the most wonderful thing, and you are. You're beautiful, you're adorable, and you are so full of helpful information that I know is going to benefit those who listen or watch this episode. So I want to start out with our typical icebreaker. What would you choose as your last meal?
Oh my goodness, my last meal. That is so difficult. And I feel like
Yes.
this might be shocking, but I do a cheat day every single week. And it is
Oh,
just, yes. So I have to say that my last meal would be a meal from Panda Express. And
oh my goodness. That is so funny. That's so funny. I love that. I go through Panda Express about
oh,
once every 3 weeks. What do you get from there?
I get the orange chicken. I
Oh,
get the chicken with broccoli, or no, the pork broccoli, but broccoli beef.
beef,
I
broccoli.
get
Yeah.
the little egg rolls. I try to
Oh,
eat so clean on every other day, but then on my
yeah.
one cheat day, I go wild. And
Oh, I guess you get the noodles and the fried rice as well.
yes, exactly. The noodles, exactly.
I
Yes.
love it. You are so cute. Okay, well, before we dive into all things matchmaking, which you have so much experience, tell me, I know that you are a person of faith. I love it. You're a Catholic.
Yes.
Is your family, were you raised Catholic?
Yeah, so I am a cradle Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I definitely I think moving to LA 12 years ago really was the impetus for me leaning very far into my faith and
Mhm,
really deconstructing everything that I had just kind of been raised with, and like, oh yeah, this is just the way that it is. And I
mhm.
I went through that period of seeking and learning, and I still am. I mean, aren't we all
Mhm.
still? This is the
Sure.
this is the journey of life. Um,
Right.
but I think especially with so much, there's a lot of energies in LA, and I live right in the like right at the Hollywood Hills. I overlook
Mhm.
the Hollywood sign. I'm in
Right.
it. I'm in it,
Yeah.
and I work in Beverly Hills, which there's more, I
Yeah.
think there's more there's more positivity in Beverly
Than
Hills.
you might think. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. But definitely in Hollywood, there's a lot of, how do we say, like negative energy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
enemy, the enemy's around. He's around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so over the last couple years, I've really leaned in and I listen to a sermon every single day. Joel Olstein is I absolutely love Joel. So I consider
Oh,
myself like Christian and
yeah.
Catholic. So like
Okay.
obviously the
Oh,
Catholicism,
so you do the mass, but you also love to listen to Joel.
I love Joel.
Yeah.
I love the Christian,
Yeah.
the preachers. I love the
Yeah.
messages that I get, but I also love the traditions of
Mhm.
Catholicism, and and I think it's rooted in such history. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm broadly Christian, but then I go to church every Sunday. I try to do, a daily mass here and there. I'm not going to daily mass. So I would consider
Yeah,
myself like
yeah,
a pretty good Catholic, but
yeah.
yeah, but I think
But
it's,
you
yeah.
so it sounds like you have experienced both Protestant and Catholic, which would definitely come into play when you are dealing with clients who are rooted in either of those. Because even though both are Christian, there are some very different ways of living and thinking in both of those that may come into play, as well as some other things I wanted to discuss. I listened to your Lila Rose podcast, which I highly recommend to anyone watching or listening. It was fabulous, so wonderful. But
Thank you.
you, just to clarify for everyone, and I will link to all the ways to get in touch with you, your Instagram, your website. But to clarify, are all of your clients in LA or in person?
So that's such a good question. So at Matchmakers in the City, we are based in Beverly Hills. Our offices, our headquarters is Beverly Hills. Our team of matchmakers is also based in Beverly Hills, with the
Mhm.
exception of my sister, who now lives in Nashville. So, but all of the other matchmakers are based in Los Angeles. So I would say, I mean, about 90% of our members are either based in LA or have a very strong tie to Los Angeles. But with the Christian community and the Catholic community, and even the Jewish community, because we don't only
Mhm.
do Catholic matchmaking or Christian matchmaking, and we
Right.
don't only do Jewish matchmaking, there are a lot of people that are brought kind of national. So we have a national membership, and we have
Oh,
a lot of database members that are national database members as well. And a lot of the Christians and the Catholics, they're open to dating people outside of whatever city that they're in. But yeah, so we do have national memberships. However, I will say, I mean, post pandemic, we were inundated. Like, the
mhm.
pandemic was, for most matchmakers, we had never seen so many clients, like, ever, because people were so lonely and they were
Yeah.
isolated. And so yes, but yeah, so I mean, we do work with members outside of LA. Usually they have a tie to LA, and we do have database members that are US based, but everyone kind of should be open to travel if necessary.
So if those watching and listening, even those who may not be in the United States, do you ever outsource if it's someone maybe who lives out of the US, but who comes to you and you say, I would love to help you, but we're going to outsource this one. Do you ever do that? Do you have relationships?
100%, Jamie, 100%. So I am such a believer in local matchmakers, and there are incredible other matchmakers and other matchmaking companies. We as a company are part of the Matchmakers Alliance and the Matchmaking Institute. So basically, that is like a community of incredible, mostly women, to be honest. But so
Sure.
I say women, but matchmakers, some men, a few men, and they're city. I love the city-based matchmakers. And like I said, I mean, we will take on clients that, like, our main service area cities are LA is our main, and then secondary cities are New York, San Francisco, Washington, DC, and Nashville, Tennessee. So those are the
Hmm.
hotspot cities where other clients, like, we have more
Right.
clients in those areas.
Mhm.
But if somebody comes to us and they're in like
Well, Atlanta,
yeah,
Georgia, Florida.
exactly. We'll probably say, okay, let's see how we can help you initially. So maybe it's, let's get you in the database. Let's see, because then
Right.
you can be a potential match for one of the priority members that's doing a national membership. And if, depending on their price point, we'll say, okay, you're in Atlanta, amazing. I can match you with an amazing Atlanta-based matchmaker, and then have them do the introduction and then work with them. So we will 1000%, if it's not the right client for us, we will give it to another matchmaker. However, we also partner with other matchmakers. So yeah, so if we do take on a client that even in LA, we partner with other matchmakers all the time, because you could literally have 1 million people in your database and still not have the right match for somebody. Like that's
I
how
love that. I love that you are about the person and that you will move them to where needed. So anyone listening or watching, they can first stop you and you can go from there and put them where they need to be. Because I feel sure, and I just read your resume, and you are, of course, you have the exposure. You're in the middle of Beverly Hills, and you've been in the lights, but you are also down to earth. You have great values, and just listening to you on Lila Rose, I'm just like, she is just precious and so mature and wise. So I want to ask you before we get into some of the content, how long have you been married and how did you meet your husband?
I am in the most incredible relationship. He is just everything of the sort. He's wonderful. But I do try to not talk about
That
my
so
but when
it's not,
Jamie,
yeah.
I will tell you, before meeting an amazing man,
Mhm.
I went through it like every other single girl that was trying earnestly and intentionally to meet a wonderful man of faith, a strong Christian man. And I
Mhm.
had time periods when I was not living my values in the way that I was
Mhm.
dating.
Mhm.
And I also know how traumatizing that is.
So
So,
you've been on both sides. I mean,
oh,
you've been on both sides.
I have been through. So when I meet with clients now, I can so beyond empathize with what they're going through.
Mhm.
And I try to encourage them a different route, right? Because we don't only work with Christian men and women who are like, okay, I'm dating in a way that I'm living out my values, this, that, the other. We're a lot of times working with secular men and women, and maybe they're
Sure. Mhm.
Christian, or maybe,
Yeah.
Catholic, or maybe they're even Jewish or whatever. But and it's, not no fault of their own, because I am a big believer in, people should be seeking, but at the same
Mhm.
time, society has given this false path, and society's like, oh yeah, you can sleep with whoever you want and there's
Mhm.
no repercussions. Don't worry. Okay, if you get pregnant, no worries. Just have an
Mhm.
abortion. No big
Mhm.
deal. Like,
Mhm.
just go for it. It's all
Yeah.
fine. And it's all about you. It's all about
Mhm.
your happiness. And
Mhm.
it's a lie. That's
Yeah.
not, it's the lie. It's the big lie. It's the big
It
lie.
is the big lie. Now, when people come to you, do you have to point that out to some of them, or do you think that life has taught them that lesson and they're like, I need something true, stable, and real?
Life teaches the lesson.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just does. And it breaks my heart when these amazing women, and they're in their late 30s, they're beautiful, they're intelligent, they're highly intelligent, they are wildly successful financially, and they just come in and they're like, this is what I have been experiencing.
Mhm.
They'll go on a couple dates with a man. Typically, they sleep with the guy after 3 dates because that's society's norm. That's the expectation. And the same pattern happens over and over again. They're still single, or they say, "Oh, you know what? I moved in with a guy because, and then we ended up living together for 3 or 4 years, and there was no proposal, there's no." And so life has taught them, hey, something isn't working here.
Mhm.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different
Mhm.
results. However, Jamie, a lot of people come in, and a lot of times we're too close to ourselves to see ourselves clearly.
Yes. Mhm.
So a lot of times the matchmakers will listen and they'll say, well, have you considered not sleeping with a man until
Mhm.
that, and for our company wide, it's exclusivity. Of course, with the Christian men and women, we encourage them to wait,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's even waiting until exclusivity is such a huge bomb drop for so many of the women that we're working with and so many of the men too. And because
Mhm.
they're like, oh, wait, oh, let me try it that way and see what happens.
So
Which,
you would
yeah,
say most people, regardless of faith or anything, they are having sex
yeah,
early in the relationship, almost across the board.
across the board, it is wild because this is the thing. A lot of men and women will can I have experience with this. A bachelorette had come to us, strong Christian woman. Oh my gosh, the sweetest girl you'll ever meet.
Mhm,
Successful, lovely, just pure of heart, great gal. Not a virgin by any stretch of the
mhm,
imagination.
mhm,
But and she said, well, I know I should have done that, but oh, I feel so badly. And she had been dating a man, her ex. He was going to daily mass, but pressured her to sleep together after like month 3 or month 4.
so, but what would you say if that were your daughter? Would you say run?
I would say,
That's what I
I
would say.
say,
I'm just wondering if I'm old and I need.
No, no, you're not old. I would say, my beautiful, sweet angel, this man has a lot of work to do.
Mhm,
And this man is, acting in a way where he is living in the flesh and not he has a
mhm,
lot of work to do.
mhm.
So put your boundaries up. Women have to go into the dating scene boundaried. And it's difficult, right? Because you can't go in when you're dating as a young woman, you can't go in with your guard up and your walls up and saying, I won't slay. You can't lead with that. You have to lead with femininity and warmth and playfulness and excitement and in that and openness. But at the same time, it has to be accompanied with a very strong boundary list
A
that
high bar for what line you will cross early
100.
on.
And every woman, any girl listening, any young woman, older, whatever age you are, before you start dating, you need to take a seat, sit with God, because we have a lot of, Christians, I'm sure, that are listening. Sit with God, journal out, what are my boundaries? What are my emotional boundaries? What are my physical boundaries? What are my sexual boundaries? What are my friend boundaries? Even with allowing a man to meet your friends, or so it's setting up that boundary list so that when you meet a really charming man who is going to church, he might even be the leader of
Mhm,
a lot of these guys.
mhm,
You have to be careful because there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, and there are
mhm.
wonderful men as well, but typically you do have to allow time, and then you can really learn about the man, because a man will want to seem wonderful when he meets an amazing woman. So he'll
Mhm,
be at his very best and this,
mhm.
that, the other. And it's only until you put down a boundary and then you see how he
Reacts to that and
responds.
respects you. Well, I want to ask you this because I'm almost, my husband and I are almost 60, but we both grew up in the same faith. And back then, the sex did not happen like it does today. In fact, what led to maybe shorter engagements was the man knew that in order to have sex, I got to put a ring on it. A lot of cases. Do you feel like if women could understand how counterproductive sex is before marriage, that we would see a lot more or marriages happen that are not happening because they're doing something that they don't realize is actually hurting the relationship, delaying it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do. I think that I've done so much research on this, and there are even biological and scientific reasons why it's so important to wait to have sex, because men have to release a certain in order for men to fall in love. There's this incredible book by Dr. Dawn Maesler, and it's called Men Chase, Women Choose. And for any single woman or any woman in general, men chase, women choose. And it's, even if you listen to it on audiobook, it's phenomenal. She talks about how important it is, how scientifically, hormonally, men need to release certain hormones in order for them to quote unquote fall in love. But there is a physiological way of tracking love, and it's only in the absence of having sex. That's when men fall in love. It's the absence of sex and when they commit. So it's because they have to release vasopressin, and they have to also be able to have a certain level of testosterone that lowers and then release a little bit of oxytocin. It's a cocktail, but it can only happen in the absence of having sex, or it mostly happens. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rules, outliers. Oh, well, my best friend had sex.
Yeah, there's
Now
always
they're
an exception.
married forever. But generally, if you, as a woman, if a woman is dating and she's finding that these relationships are not going anywhere, a lot of times it's this simple shift of boundary. Don't sleep with a man unless he is your husband, or like
Mhm.
that's an easy
Can
thing.
you, because I heard you reference this on Lila Rose, but you also said when women have sex, tell how that differs from the man, and not what makes him fall in love is the lack of sex. What
Yes.
happens when a woman has sex with someone?
When a woman has sex with a man, if it's even remotely enjoyable, she
Hmm.
releases a huge spike of oxytocin. And
Hmm.
oxytocin is the cuddle, love, bonding hormone.
The nursing,
Nursing,
mhm,
exactly. When you have a child, you have
mhm,
this huge, like,
yeah.
over spike of oxytocin, which is beautiful and wonderful. And that is biology and science and God all working together.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the problem is, you're bonding to this man, and he could be a serial cheater. He could be a serial killer, but you don't. And this is why so many women we all have those girlfriends that were like, what are
Yeah.
you doing with him?
Yeah.
Like, you're such an amazing woman. Why do you keep going back to this guy? And it's because she's bonded. She's pair bonded. So,
Mhm.
yes, so it is really important. But I think there is a lot of hope, because I think a lot of women are waking up. I'm working with and hearing a lot more women that are born again virgins.
I
It's
love that.
oh,
Explain that. Heard that and I love that term. It,
it's so beautiful. And I
mhm.
think it's a response, and it's kind of a countercultural movement to the mainstream media and this brainwashing, that the brainwashing of films, and just everything that women really grew up with, the
Mhm.
Sex and the City culture, which, believe me, I love Sex and the City. I was raised on Sex and the City. But I also then realized, oh, wait, in real life, this is a horrific way of going
Mhm.
about dating. Like, if you
Mhm.
really want trauma, if you really
Yeah.
want to, not have a lifelong partner, and not live in a way that you can wake up and look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of yourself and have self-love and have self-value and all of that, go down that road. Go down that route. The road
Mhm.
route.
Yeah. Well, Alessandra, let's just say, because probably the majority of people who are really digging into this are female. What do you see are some of the biggest mistakes that women are making that are impeding their finding a good quality man?
Absolutely. So I see that women and again, we're generalizing here.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to generalize.
Mhm.
I see so many women that are so incredibly picky, and that are self-sabotaging themselves out of incredible potential relationships. I recently had a meeting with a woman who wouldn't even give a lovely man who this was a Christian man, good career, seemed nice, normal, all of that. She would not even give him a first date because she had a Zoom meeting with him first before she even met him, which is also, stop doing that, ladies. This is that if you really want to be single forever, yeah, pre-screen the guys on Zoom. That's a great way of staying single forever. Pre-screen.
Okay, I love that. Now tell me why. Tell me why. I agree with you, but would you tell
Yes.
why that is a bad idea?
Yes. So pre-screening men on a Zoom or a FaceTime, or even judging them too harshly on a phone call before you meet them in person
Person.
is such a killer, because a lot of men are very awkward on the phone. A lot of men are very awkward on a Zoom, and it just depersonalizes.
Yes.
Of course, with somebody like you and me,
Mhm.
we're lovely, we're
Yeah.
lovely, but there are
Yeah.
certain people that you're warm, you're engaging, and you have to amp it up though even more when that's why a
Mhm.
lot of times when people could be, think about a lot of people's work days, even though it might be a Zoom meeting, you're exhausted by the end because you have to kind of
Mhm.
overemphasize everything because you're behind a screen, and
Yeah.
there's so much of a connection that you're missing unless you meet in person. There's body language, there's literally smells that
Yeah.
you could be
So
attracted
much.
to somebody's
Mhm.
pheromones and scent and all
Yeah.
of that, and just
Yeah.
their body language, their way of being. And I've been a matchmaker. I say I've been a matchmaker for 12 years because to me it's a long time, and I emphasize
Oh,
that
yes. Yes.
because I've been a matchmaker for 12 years. I've interviewed thousands upon thousands of men and women, and I will meet these people in person and I will be like, oh my goodness. Like, and a lot of the men too, because men, when they're in person, they have a different presence.
Yes.
There's an energy. And sorry if I
Yes.
said LA, but there's an energy that they
Yeah.
give in person. So you're already, if you're saying, okay, unless I have to meet you on Zoom and then I'll see, and then you cross them off the list if they're not, super engaging and charismatic and wonderful. And also the problem there is that a lot of those charismatic, engaging, really, guys that are just getting it right, dating wonderfully, they're not great at relationships. And I said this on Lila's
Mhm.
podcast.
I
Men who are
heard
great
that,
at
and that's
dating,
amazing. And I agree.
yes, men who are great at dating are typically not great at relationships because it takes a very different skill set. They have
Mhm.
mastered the art of attraction. They've mastered the art of dating. They've mastered it, but they have not mastered the art of being in a relationship and the soft skills and the hard skills and the soft skills that it takes. So
Mhm.
stop doing Zoom dates. Just cut that out of your repertoire. No, no,
Mhm.
no. Instead, meet the guy in person. Stop
Mhm.
doing coffee dates. Studies have shown coffee dates have the lowest rate of success out of any of the other dates. If
Really?
Yes, if you're doing online dating or app dating, which 99% of the population are doing nowadays,
Mhm.
you need to stop doing coffee dates. Instead, do drinks, do appetizer to drinks. Small plates and drinks is a great way of doing a first date. Even, and instead of saying, oh, do you want to grab a drink, you can say, oh, hey, there's this really cool wine tasting place nearby,
Mhm.
do you want to
Mhm.
do that? And so for men, it's important to be intentional, even if it's not, a 5-course meal at a beautiful restaurant. You can still make it intentional. You can say, oh, hey, there's this really cool ice skating rink that just opened, down the street or in Santa Monica. Do you want to
Mhm.
do that for our first date? Amazing. Or, oh, there's so many different activities that you could do on a first date instead of just, oh, let's get coffee. Or, oh my God,
Yeah.
the
There's really
killer,
no effort required for coffee. Just that's
coffee.
almost like trying to make it not like a quick escape. Well,
Yeah,
if it doesn't work, it's only 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Yeah.
exactly. And the thing is, even if somebody is not your soulmate, there's still so much to gain from this interaction. And like, if we really are living as Christian men and women, every
Mhm.
single person in our path is there for a reason and has something to teach us. And
Hmm.
and who knows, it could be, we had a client a few years ago. We set her up. She was a fabulous bachelorette. We set her up with this great guy. They hit it off first date, went on second date, went on a third date, realized it's more of a friendship. They thought each other were great, but we're just friend vibes. That's fine. He ended up inviting her to his birthday because they were friends. They were in a similar industry. Wonderful. She met his brother at the birthday, and now her and the brother have been married for like 5 or 6 years.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's why you don't know why this person. So
That's
if you're
right.
just meeting them and then you're like, oh, he said on his profile that he was 6'1", but he's definitely 5'10", and then you just shut off, then you have no then okay, fine. That connection that's it. That's it.
Alessandra, I love what you're saying because basically what you're saying is if someone has that attitude towards someone that they're dating, it's a lack of respect for them as a person, and that we shouldn't view a date as all about, ooh, ick. I didn't look at them as a person, and if it goes somewhere, great. But if not, they might be a friend, a connection to your next spouse. I love that because it makes dating more of a significant effort to respect another person as a potential partner
Gee, 100%.
rather than swiping through and just, I think culture has turned it into almost like a catalog.
Yes.
Let me go online shopping. And I do wonder if your client who said no, did she ever go on a date with that person? And did she ever get matched with someone, your picky client?
But she's doing date coaching, which is great because I was like, girl, you are fabulous.
Uh-huh.
But she needed some date coaching, and she needs to reprogram because this is not going to yield success. It's not going to yield success.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and while I say don't be picky about so this woman did a Zoom with this guy. So the actual reasoning she didn't want to do a first date with him was because he had never been to Europe. And she just thought that that was very strange because he was a 40-something-year-old man. Why would you never go to Europe? But you don't know this man's story. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And why cut him off? This could be a great potential father. He may not be jet setting all around the world, but neither are you. You go on like one trip a year. Like this is not a
Yeah.
do or die thing. And I'm sure that you can incentivize him to go to travel. So all of that to say, I am just such a big believer in, of course, you need to be, when you are online or app dating, it's important to be picky, but not about the superficial qualities, such
Mm-hmm.
as like that. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
to be hyper. If you want to find something wrong with a person, you will
Mm-hmm.
find something wrong with a person.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are like, what are your absolute deal breakers? What are the deal breakers? They want marriage, they want kids in the same kind of time frame and timeline as you do, and religion is compatible. Those
Mm-hmm.
here at our company at Matchmakers in the City, these are the three deal breakers that are absolute must-haves. And everything
Okay.
else everything else is open because it might be that you might say, okay, ideally I want a man over 6 foot. It's wonderful, of course,
Mm-hmm.
we all love, but
Mm-hmm.
there are also incredible men that are 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", that will literally give you the world, and
Mm.
that are strong Christian men. They have incredible careers. They're going to be wonderful dads, and you're knocking yourself. You're not even giving yourself a shot to meet these great guys because you have a height limit.
I love that. What about the girl who is out there who she's not picky. She just wants a good, solid man. She wants to be a trad wife. She just
Mhm.
wants,
Love that.
but she's maybe not on a site, doesn't know. But what would you tell her? She's like, I go to church. I mean, and I know some young girls like this. I go to church. I've been at a university, and it's just nothing's happening.
Yeah, yeah. It's really important to be intentional about setting personal goals that you are going to different locations, different events, um,
Hmm.
and different organizations, especially post college, because during college is such a wonderful time, but people are not
Hmm.
dating with the intention of getting married unless you're going to a super Christian or Catholic or
Hmm.
whatever school where
Hmm.
that's what they do. But if
Right.
you're just going to kind of a normal liberal arts university, definitely marriage is not on the forefront of people's minds. So post college, it's really important to get connected with a variety of groups. There are, I know in most major cities, YCP, which is Young Catholic Professionals, it's an
Hmm.
incredible group. It's all young professionals. So they have a conference in Dallas every single year. Even if
Hmm.
something's Christian, go for it. Believe me, go to the conference.
Hmm.
Myself and my sister did the conference last year, and we hosted this huge matchmaking party where we matched 400 singles. And it was a lot of fun. But when I tell you, there were more men there than there were women at this event. So it's not that there aren't good single men out there. It's just that there you have to be very intentional about where you're going. So it's broadening your horizons. If you are in whatever there are so many different organizations that you can be a part of. There's also like a young Republicans club. There are these everywhere if you're more conservative. If you're a Democrat, go for it. Young Democrats Club.
Hmm.
Amen. I don't know. I mean, you tend to get a different group there, maybe not as, you know,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
different kind of group, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's getting I don't know if you're going to find your trad husband at a Young Democrats Club. Like, let's be
No,
real.
no, I would stay conservative on that. But
Yeah.
I want to ask you on that note, and then I've got another question. But there is, and it's very on the forefront of the news right now, there's a huge gender gap where women are more liberal than they've ever been, and men are more conservative than they've ever been, and to the point where almost exclusively voting that way. And there was something on Fox News last night where a guy was interviewing women, would you ever marry a conservative or a Trump voter? And most of them said no. So
Yeah.
are you seeing that reflected, like the inability to consider someone of a different political stripe? Do you see that reflected in your pool of people?
To
And
be completely honest, yeah. And I
how do you handle that?
we're in LA. We don't only work with conservative Christians. They're easier
Right.
to match, let me tell you. They're a whole lot easier to match. As are Jewish, conservative Jewish. They're a lot easier to match. Um,
So conservative Jewish men and conservative Christian or Catholic men are easier to match?
yeah, they are.
Why is that?
They are because they have a more traditional sense, and just they're very rooted in their values. That's really what it is. They're rooted in their values. They know what they want. They're not all over the place. It's
Hmm.
also why I love working with attorneys as well, because they're more straight to the point. They know what they want. They're just more rooted. They're more grounded in their truth and their
Hmm.
in and they're very connected to their faith and to their values. So I
Hmm.
love matchmaking. It's not to say I don't love matchmaking, liberal men and all of this, but when you go into that space, you also have to understand that there are now so many different in this sphere of relationships. When you open that can of worms,
Hmm.
it's polyamory, it's non-binary,
Hmm.
it's this, that, the other, and it gets a little wonky and so we always say we matchmake monogamy. If you're not looking
Hmm.
for monogamy, you're in the
Hmm.
wrong company. There are other
Great.
places you can go.
That's great.
You should go there. Bless
That's
you.
great.
Go there, please enjoy.
Yeah.
But yes, we do see, and so my big plea to women that are successful women, because we do work with a lot of successful women. We are
Mhm.
not an inexpensive firm by
Mhm.
any stretch of the imagination. It is an investment. However, and so we do then get successful women, successful men.
Mhm.
When the successful women come to us and they say, I will never date a Trump supporter, or I will not date, you are now limiting your pool to men that are not valuing marriage. The men that are not valuing marriage and they're not valuing what a woman brings, and that are then not going to allow a woman, because then the women also say they want to be in their feminine energy. They want to be, they're working so hard during the day. When they're home, they want to unplug. They want to be in their nurturing energy. They want to be playful. They want to be this, they want to be that. But the problem is, if you are only dating, if you are not dating any conservative men, any men that support Trump, if you're cutting that off, well, now of other men, okay, now half of these men are gay. Love, bless you, bless. So half of them are gay. Then the other half have such a convoluted, and I'm sorry, this is just my opinion, but
Well,
they have
no, this is your experience.
my
You are
experience.
speaking from
Oh,
client pool,
yes, so
correct?
they're confused because they're like, well, in a relationship, okay, I don't like to only have this role, gender role. I like to have this. So it's very confusing. They're confused. Everybody's confused. So, but then these women are then like, well, how come I'm not meeting men that are marriage minded? Because those men that are all about whatever, anything goes, they're
Mhm.
the ones that are, generally speaking, pressuring women to sleep with them very early. They have multiple partners. They don't want to make anything exclusive. They don't value marriage. They don't value family. They value themselves. They value what they want. They're watching porn. They're
Mm.
hyper fixated on me. And also, it's not okay. It's not their fault if a woman gets pregnant. Let her decide. Anyway, it's a lot, Jamie. It is a lot to unpack.
I'm telling you, and sometimes I look at these women who have these views and I think you have no clue what kind of man you might be missing. Good old traditional regard, I'm telling you, it
It's
makes me
so
sad, but
true.
I do want you to say something. And I had on my podcast someone who is very, very versed in abusive relationships and men who are abusive. And you, in your firm, each person is personally interviewed, background checked, and social media checked. Everybody, correct?
Every
N-
single
Now,
person.
whether someone comes through you or not, why is a background check necessary? I heard you say on Lila Rose, it's a must. And I
It's an
agree with you, but can you say why? Give us an example of where you have seen, look, girls, this is why you need a background check.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. And that's why background checks are incredible, because even if you get a website like Been Verified, binverified.com. I'm not a spokesperson for them. However, it is such an easy thing. If you have somebody's phone number, you can put their phone number in before going on a date, look up, put their phone number in, do as much checking as you possibly can,
Mhm.
because it will pop up, court records will pop up. If there is any kind of domestic anything, if there's any kind of record, do not go on a date with this man, because the past
Yes.
is the best predictor of future. And there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. A lot of men, if they do have some kind of domestic dispute in their past, and I'm not saying redemption is not possible, it definitely is. However, that's the exception and not the rule. So unless a man has literally, gone to rehab or done a full program to rehabilitate himself, there's a lot of shadiness going around, especially if you live in a major city. In LA, it's really scary, because people come here to, it's like the land of make believe. So they come here to escape whatever it is. I mean, we had a bachelorette who had come to us, and now she's happily married, I will say.
Oh, good.
married to an attorney. She's Catholic. He converted to Catholicism, which is so beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, fabulous couple. But right before she was dating him, we were doing date coaching and she had been dating this other guy. And she was like, yeah, and there are always red flags. And this is the thing, women, you need to be aware of the red flags. And the red flags come in the form of he's not reliable. If he says he's going to do something, he doesn't follow through with it. He's late. He's an
Mm.
hour late to a date or even like 30 minutes late to whatever. There are always red flags. So ladies, there are always going to be red flags. I mean, of course, there are times when there are these real sociopaths that don't have any. And then you're like, what in the world?
Well, look at Ted Bundy. He was handsome. He was an attorney, and he murdered all those women. I mean, I know that is an extreme case, but Alessandra, I
Not that
believe
extreme.
you're so well, and the women who he killed, I mean, my goodness. So I so appreciate that you say get a background check. There are people who marry someone and do not find out until later they've been married before or have a child. So, yes, I totally agree with
Yeah,
that.
trust but verify. Just trust, but also verify.
Yes.
Verify. You
Now,
know.
I want to ask you, you said social media check. What is that? And I say this all the time. Be so careful, girls. Can you just, as a young, cool, in the know person, can you give your take on all that?
Definitely. Well, I think it's important I think it's important to be aware of any social media that a guy or a girl that you're dating or you're about to date has. I think it's also really important who that person is following. And I think it's a really good indicator of who they are. If you look at a guy's, even when we're doing a background check, I don't do them anymore, but I tell the gal that does them, I say, look at who he's following. Look at who he's following. If it looks like he's following an all girls school, you don't want to go, like, if he looks like he went to an all girls school, you do not want to be going on a date with this man. So if he is following all of these Instagram models that are half naked, half this, half
Mhm,
that, you want to be careful. It's
mhm,
always been it's not good. It's not good. And it also it we had to once give one of our bachelors the advice that he needs to go off social media or he needs to at least take a break because his brain was so convoluted with what he thought was reality versus
mhm,
what reality actually was because he was being inundated with, Facetune photos of women and he's like, well, this is what I want. And we're like, well, she doesn't even look like that. We showed him in real time. We were like, okay, we're going to set you up with this influencer. This is who you wanted. He met her and he was like, oh, okay. I understand what you're saying. It's not real.
not
So
reality.
that's really important. But yeah, I mean, I definitely encourage girls if you're going on a date or if you are discerning being exclusive with somebody, take a look at who they're following. You don't have to be a crazy person about it, but just take a look and say objectively, okay, oh, these are people that he probably grew up with and went to school with, whatever. Or, oh, there's a lot of nefarious stuff going on here.
Right.
That's a dark path. Yeah.
Well, what would you say to girls who are posting the pictures where they're half dressed and in their bikinis, and there's just all of that over and over, and probably a honest effort to try to be attractive and all that, but do you feel like that's counterintuitive for a certain segment of men that they might turn away?
100%. I think that I mean, it's a different story if, you go on a trip and, you're with your friends and it's more of a
Mhm,
wholesome vibe. But
mhm,
yeah, I mean, if you are presenting as, bikini shot, looking back shot, like you are going to attract men that are looking for physical intimacy.
mhm, mhm,
That's who you are going to ultimately attract. And
mhm.
I would also say that, a good man is not going to see like, a cute photo with a girl, like maybe that isn't, so I'm also not the, what's the word? I live in LA.
Yeah, that's why I
I'm
want
a,
to balance
I'm a,
you. Yeah.
no, but I love fashion. I love all of the things.
Mhm.
So I'm also a believer that a good guy is not going to look at a girl's, Instagram and say, "Oh my gosh, her cleavage is showing."
Yeah.
Not my
Yeah.
wife, because I
Yeah.
think that then you get into the Andrew Tate category of men who, bless
Mhm.
their hearts, they're just
Yeah.
little wounded birds that I want to hug and say, let me show you femininity, and believe me, you will love it.
Yeah.
You will love
Oh
it,
my good. Well,
angels.
I know because it's been almost an hour and I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to share all of the ways to get in touch with you. You've recommended one book. Are there any other must read or must listen podcast resources for the girls who want to start really honing in on some of what you teach
Yeah.
and coach to your clients?
Definitely. I love the book Attached, by Amir Levine, and there's Rachel Fisher, I think, as well. But Attached by Amir
Okay.
Levine. It's really important for women to understand what their attachment style is. A lot of women fall into the anxious attachment style, so it's important to understand that, so that when they're dating, they're making sure that they're dating secure men, and that if a man has avoidant qualities, they're not engaging.
Mhm.
So Attached is an amazing book. Also, truly, I mean, the something that keeps me grounded is the Bible.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I do my Bible readings every day, and
Oh, yes. What do
yeah,
you think about, just real quick, do you put any stock in Enneagram when you're trying to put people together?
I think it's fascinating. I recently, everything has demonic, quote unquote. My sister,
Yeah.
she said, "Oh my gosh, it was by a Satanist or something like that." So I'm like, "Oh no, I loved the Enneagram." So, I try to, we just try our very best, but she's really, really strict about what she consumes. I think the
Yeah.
Enneagram is fascinating. I think it's fascinating, but I would definitely say also for women, just having a strong group of females that have the goal of empowering each other, that have a shared, they don't, I mean, I have a women's group that I meet with every week, and it has been such a pillar of my life, and I couldn't recommend it more, especially to single women. Being single is so difficult, especially when you have a pure heart, when you are dating with the intention of marriage. It is so hard. So it's really important to have that base of other females, and a lot of churches have connect groups. Wonderful. But even if you don't have that in your community, start one, because it will be such a game changer, such a life changer, and make the goals and the intentions to be that, we are being the best versions of ourselves. If it's a personal goal, it's okay to say, my personal goal is to get engaged, or my personal goal is to get married. That's a beautiful personal goal, but also nurturing, feeding into yourself, and really developing that soft feminine nature within that society is just really doesn't want us to be in. So it's really important to come with that armor.
Well, oh my goodness, you are so wise. You are
Oh,
so precious. And I appreciate all of this. And you can come back anytime. I know you're so busy, but you have a huge fan here in Alabama, and I'm sure you're going to have many more after my people listen to or watch this episode. So thank you, Alessandra. You are just precious.
thank you, Jamie. I am sending all my blessings to you, to all the listeners. Just know that we're praying for you. You've got this. You've got
Yeah.
this. Okay, ladies, you've got this.
Thank you so much. And to all of you watching and listening, until next time, you have a fabulous rest of your day. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the SavvyCast. If you'll take the time to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, that would mean so much. As always, thank you for listening and have a blessed day.